The broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Good morning and welcome to Complete's live webinar, What Every CFO Should Know to Take Back Control of Corporate Spend. Before we start today's session, please allow me to guide you through a few navigation pointers about the GoToWebinar service. To ensure the best audio quality possible, everyone except for our panelists is muted. You may ask questions at any time by typing them in the Questions tab located in the control panel to the right of your screen. This session is being recorded and will be made available to you after the webinar session has closed. My name is Zainab and I'm your moderator today. I work in the marketing team here at Complete and produce informative content about our solutions and services. If you have any questions after the webinar, you can tweet me at Zainab_Boston. Please note that you can find Complete on Twitter at CompleteP2P, and we encourage you to tweet during today's webinar using the hashtag CompleteLive. Let me start by first taking us through some of the points I'll be covering. By the end of this session, you will have seen stats about some of the big issues facing CFOs today, why CFOs should care about controlling corporate spending, what problems arise across the company when there's no control, the top 6 ways to control spend to tackle these issues, and finally the key takeaways from the session. So as you can see, there's a lot to cover. Let's get started. Before we start to look at some of the important points CFOs should know about spend control, I want to highlight some industry statistics to help paint a picture of what many finance teams are dealing with today. IBM's Director of Policy estimates that, on average, companies capture only 40% of their total corporate spending under purchasing, and this is heavily because of indirect spending. We'll talk more about indirect spending later and what CFOs can do to tackle it. According to Belentis Market Report for 2017, more than 90% of invoices are still processed manually worldwide. From paper formats to manual data entry, there's a lot that can go wrong with manual invoice processing systems, and this can be a contributing factor to lack of control over corporate spending. The Action Fraud UK National Fraud Centre reports that purchasing fraud affects 1 in 4 SME businesses every year. It's a scary statistic, but it highlights exactly why it's so important for CFOs to have spend control procedures in place. So with those in mind, why should CFOs care about controlling corporate spend? From budget holders to procurement teams, there are many stakeholders who spend company money. With all these employees spending and managing their own budgets in their own unique ways, finance professionals need to make sure they have control of all approval and invoicing processes. Without this control, corporate spending turns into a free-for-all. The problem is that budget holders work in silos and have no view of the bigger picture when it comes to corporate spend. This is why it's down to the CFO to ensure the financial stability of the business remains intact. Businesses that have a spend control strategy in place will help finance teams to stay on top of the spending activity taking place throughout the business and avoid them having to always play detective with approvals later. The reason CFOs and finance teams need to be the ones to implement and drive these strategies is simple. Finance teams are the ones facilitating the release of corporate funds to suppliers. They're the only ones responsible for having knowledge of the financial health of the business. And they hold all invoices and purchasing information for the whole business. Taking back control of corporate spending can make great improvements in an organization, not just for finance, but for budget holders, procurement, and even the CEO or the board. Currently, there is a common misconception amongst many finance professionals that spend control is more of a nice to have than a necessity, but this is far from the case. For most finance teams, the following are considered just part of the territory when managing finances in a business, and they are just accepted as the way things are. Indirect spending. This is the accumulation of all the smaller purchases that a company may not necessarily process through the correct approval process because it doesn't greatly affect your business's bottom line. For example, office supplies. Individually, they are no great threat to corporate spend, but continuing such a practice can equate to a huge total if you're not careful. Fraudulent or maverick spending. The more serious counterpart to indirect spending, maverick spending is the intention to spend corporate funds without running the purchase through the correct approval workflows. In essence, it's spending that finance cannot see or account for, which means their financial data will always remain incorrect and corporate funds will mysteriously vanish with no explanation. Duplicate spending. Unlike the first two, this issue isn't an intentional one. It's down to the individual processes and human error. Let's say an invoice is received, printed, payment authorized, and filed away as completed. During this time, however, the supplier feels a delay in payment, so reissues the invoice. Without anyone knowing that this is a duplicate, a second payment is made. This is all too common in manual invoice processes. Missing invoices or approvals. Another issue usually associated with manual paper-based systems. Whether it's been mistakenly filed away, lost, or even discarded, finance professionals end up having to spend a lot of time physically chasing budget holders to find out if a document related to a purchase does exist. During which time, late fees can incur, deadlines can be missed, or duplicate payments can occur. Cash flow challenges. Although it's down to budget holders to manage their spending and make sure they stay within budget, it's down to finance to oversee that the company's cash flow remains healthy. By having no control on how budget holders are spending, cash flow management can go out of the window, and this can cause nasty surprises for the business in the future if not carefully managed. Incorrect data. As a result of all of the above, having incorrect data of corporate spending can give a false impression of the company's financial health. Unfortunately, with budget holders each providing their own financial data in the format unique to their own way of working, this almost always results in incorrect data that doesn't have what finance has, and the time spent to correct this across the company means the CEO receives the data, usually in the form of an end-of-month report, weeks late. Now, what if I was to tell you that all these issues could easily be avoided by having a good spend control strategy in place? Would you still consider it more of a nice to have? The great news is that adopting a spend control strategy doesn't mean a huge overhaul for your finance team or a large financial investment. I'm now going to take you through 6 ways CFOs can take back control of corporate spending. Firstly, catch indirect spending before it falls through the cracks. For employee travel expenses to check requests, not all a company's indirect spending is captured for finance in real time, and in some cases, there's no way for finance to anticipate it's going to happen until an ambiguous invoice lands on their desk. Individual indirect costs may appear small on their own to the spender, but they make up a long tail of spending that can amount to a huge amount of unapproved spending. Finance won't want this to fall through the cracks, so they need to make sure all the spend is accounted for. The simplest way to tackle this is to put in place clear processes and communicating to budget holders that their spending will not be approved if they defer from this. Adopting an automated process is the most effective way for CFOs and finance professionals to ensure they are getting all the purchasing information they need and that there is no workaround for spenders to carry out indirect spending. By rolling this out as the only purchasing approval channel, it will help to bridge the gap between finance and budget holders, allowing full visibility of spend in a real-time and accurate way. CFOs need to have full control of what is being shared with whom and when. By providing budget holders and procurement with more visibility of spend behaviour, budget holders adopt the best practice that suits your business, which in turn encourages them to stick to this process. Ditch manual paper processes for automated real-time data. Businesses are increasingly adopting automation technology to gain more control and visibility of their processes, and it's not hard to see why. Just last year, McKinsey Global Institute estimated that automation could raise productivity growth globally by 0.8% to 1.4% annually. So how can the introduction of financial automation help businesses control spend? Paper and manual processes cause a lot of issues. This combined with existing issues like tracking indirect spend means CFOs and their teams are having to spend more time chasing budget holders for the correct information to properly process invoices. I'm afraid to say that if this all sounds too familiar, you need to ask yourself if your team is really controlling spend effectively. And the pitfalls of manual processes don't just affect the CFO. Anyone in the business looking for corporate purchasing information, from procurement and budget holders all the way up to the CEO, will have difficulty finding what they're after. It's human nature that we make decisions based on all the information presented to us at the point of making the decision, and spending budget in a business is no different. The best solution is to implement a fully automated purchase-to-pay system to not only streamline your purchasing processes, but it also offers additional value in the form of the data it holds. With an automated system, everything is captured and all stages of the purchasing, approving, and invoicing process is recorded. For CFOs, this is great, but even procurement professionals and budget holders can utilize the real-time data from an automated system. For budget holders, they have access to real-time data to get a full view of where their budget is going and how it can be better spent. For procurement, delving into historical data recorded means they get a full view of supplier information and can make informed decisions for their purchasing activity. Identify maverick spending before it poses a risk to your organization. Fraudulent and maverick spending are serious threats to all businesses, and preventing purchasing fraud in your company should be a high priority. Maverick spending can occur in any business, as well as the financial implications maverick spending can cause. It can also affect your HMRC compliance score, so it's not just the money that's at stake. The key to making sure your business is protected is to ensure you can identify maverick spending before it happens. The tricky part with identifying maverick spending is that there's no way to foresee it happening until the purchase has been made. By its nature, maverick spending occurs outside of the standard purchasing channels, which is why it's tricky to catch. Maverick purchases cannot be blocked by finance or procurement, as they are purposely sidestepped in the process. This is a serious matter for all businesses, but steps can be taken to prevent it happening. For CFOs, it is essential for you to take the necessary measures required to keep your business safe from maverick spending, and most importantly, keep corporate finance and cash flow under control. So what can you do? The first thing you can do is adopt one single channel that all purchasers in the business must use. A manual system can easily be deceived, so for full security, implementing a system that encompasses your whole purchase-to-pay process is the best way to cover all bases. Any purchases that need to be made will have to go through this process. Everyone along the purchase approvals process, from procurement teams or budget holders all the way through to accounts payable, will be able to see what purchases are being requested. Because everyone in the business is using one channel for the whole process, it can help eliminate any instances of maverick spending, putting control back into the hands of finance professionals. Have the right tools to make smarter spending decisions. Making sure your company has an efficient purchase-to-pay process in place is one of the first ways to be able to control spend. Manual paper-based processes may be what most SMEs use, but this doesn't necessarily mean it's the most efficient. One aspect of controlling spend is making sure that budget holders and procurement teams are making intelligent spending decisions, which can in turn help them to avoid overspending. CFOs can't be there to advise on what's the best way to use their budget, but by adopting some of the right tools and having the right access to the information, they can make sure those with spending power in the business have all the data they need to come to a decision that avoids overspending. The most commonly used tool for collating purchasing data is paper. There is also the issue that data collected on paper can become out of date, and trying to keep it up to date can be costly and time-consuming alone. So for budget holders and procurement trying to do their best to procure more with less at every turn, it's safe to say that this isn't the best way for them to research through supplier data. An electronic system is an ideal solution that can save time and equip them with all the information they need to make savings for the business. As I touched on earlier in this presentation, a fully automated P2P system already has the benefits of streamlining purchasing workflow, but another massive benefit is that all the purchasing data is aggregated in one place. With budget holders and procurement already using such tools for their purchasing activity, it's a perfect solution for giving them access to real-time data, as well as up-to-date historical data, all in one place. CFOs can be safe in the knowledge that budget holders and procurement have everything they need to make smarter spending decisions, therefore maintaining control on spend. In short, this will make your life as a CFO a lot easier. Leave no room for error. The term human error comes hand in hand with manual processes. In fact, here's another stat for you. The Institute of Financial Management reports that with manual processes, 2/3 of businesses report an average payment error rate of more than 1%, and 10% of businesses report errors on at least 3% of their supplier payments. So as you can imagine, how much more time and money is wasted when the documents are incorrect. We accept that no one is perfect, but when it comes to controlling your company's spending, you need to be. There are certain quick fix ways to try and remove some of the more laborious manual steps of an entirely manual process. A commonly used tool is optical character recognition, or OCR, software, which takes scanned documents, both handwritten and typed, reads them, and converts the information into your accounts payable systems. However, this does come with issues like incorrectly reading the document information, and as a result, it needs to be double-checked, and additional manual steps must be added back into the process to prevent incorrect data from being submitted. The best bet to avoid errors entirely is to make the whole process automated, rather than trying to slot automated steps into your existing manual process. Incorporating an entirely automated P2P process means complete top-level visibility across the entire purchase-to-pay process. Everything is captured in one place and all the dots are connected from purchase order to invoice. With paper and manual processes out of the picture, there is much smaller room for error like duplication, missed payments, lost document and delayed or missed approvals, allowing for full control over spend. Finally, one of the most effective ways for finance professionals to control spend in their organization is to make sure all departments in the business are united. The financial status of a business affects everyone, so ensuring you've connected the dots between procurement, budget holders, and finance is key. Throughout this presentation, you may have picked up on a recurring theme of unifying departments. Some CFOs and finance teams may feel uneasy giving budget holders and procurement full visibility of work going through the purchasing approvals and invoicing workflow. But this works as a win-win for everyone. Working in one channel saves finance time chasing for approvals, as an automated solution will notify the approver that their sign-off is needed. Rather than a signed-off paper document getting lost or not returned to finance, automation works electronically to push the documents through the process without the need for printing or delays. Budget holders who want to make sure important invoices and payment deadlines have been processed on time can also see themselves, so finance won't have multiple colleagues screaming for updates on their invoices and payments. Full visibility also means finance can increase spend accountability to budget holders and procurement. This will save time and money as you eliminate rogue documents coming in and the time spent by finance needing to do detective work before processing the purchases. So to wrap up, let's look at the key points we've covered today. Having control over spend will help eliminate a lot of the common everyday issues CFOs face in their departments. Remember, it's a necessity, not a nice to have. Ditch paper and go fully digital and automated. Not only will it streamline your purchasing, approvals, and invoicing processes, it will also make your data more accurate. Move over to one system for your entire purchasing, invoicing, and approval process and give budget holders and procurement full visibility so they can see what their spending looks like against the bigger picture of corporate spend. Thank you very much for attending today. We hope you found it worthwhile. Before we go, I'd just like to share a few final notes on Complete. Complete is a leading provider of powerful spend management solutions for SMEs that eliminates paper and unites finance, procurement, and budget holders, providing an accurate real-time picture of company finances. Offering the next generation of purchasing and budget management automation at an affordable cost, its smart spend software comprises solutions for e-invoicing, purchase invoice approval, purchase order and receipting, employee expenses, contract management, and report generation. Finally, if you would like some further reading on the topic of spend control, you can download our free white paper, Top 6 Ways Finance Professionals Can Control Spend. You can download this by visiting the resources page on the complete website. If you have any questions about implementing a spend control strategy and complete, please send your questions to the email address on your screen. If you have submitted any questions during the webinar, we will be sure to get back to you in the coming days. Thank you for joining us today. This webinar session is now concluded.